What's up, everyone? Welcome to Tune Up, a Shopmonkey podcast where we talk about the automotive industry and car care, specifically the 99% of a car's life that's spent outside of the dealership. In this episode, we're discussing what do you need to get a shop going. My name is Zach, and alongside with the rest of the Shopmonkey colleagues here today, we make up the Tune Up crew, all with various perspectives and passions and insight into the automotive industry. Let me introduce everyone. And with everybody's introduction, we have a pretty sweet theme. Let's see if you guys can figure it out this week. In P1, we have Gallagher X2 Wilson. What's up, man?
How's it going?
All right. Next, we have John SQ8 Moretti.
What's up? That was a great hook, Zach. Thank you.
All right. In P3, we have Mike Hornet Bordeaux.
What's up?
Okay. X2 SQ8 Hornet. And last but not least, we have Lucas Mach-E Conyer.
What's up, everyone? Yeah, I like those looks, Gallagher and Jonathan. Let's keep thinking.
I think this has something to do with luxury EV models because I know the Mach-E is the Mustang Mach-E is the EV submodel, and I think the SQ8 is Mercedes EV submodel, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, all right.
I was just going to say randomly generated AI car names.
Gibberish.
Well,
Things my kid wrote down last night.
we have one more, and we always forget about Zach. So hosting us today, Zach C40 Buffum. C40, that's the last one.
Is that an
I'm
airplane?
double down on my thoughts there.
Yeah, my gut reaction were cars are probably not interested in buying. That was mine.
If
Also
I can't
feels like-
understand this code, I think it's cars I can't afford.
Feels like off-brand energy drink name.
Four Loko alternatives that haven't been outlawed yet.
600 milligrams of caffeine.
Just real talk, though. Has anyone here Four Loco'd hard? Anyone? Just...
You're talking about like
No,
the
because
original
no one
Four
remembers
Locos
because
that,
it was
like,
an
gave you-
I
awful
like that you
experience,
verbed
that's
it. It's a verb now.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
drink
no,
Four
no.
Locos. I'm Four Locoing.
Don't play beer pong with Four Loco. That's my advice to anybody.
You're not my
considering
dad.
drinking a Four Loco.
Well, no, they're not four loco names. Zach,
Welcome
do
to
we
Shop Monkey
spoil it?
Podcast with 6-year-old references.
Just age us slightly. Let's just do that right off the bat. Now go for it, Lucas. Why don't you go ahead and reveal?
Okay, car theme. All these names are the 10 slowest selling cars in today's market.
There you go.
There you go. So yeah, pretty terrible. Just like the AI generated names. But yeah, you got the BMW X2, the Audi SQ8, the Dodge Hornet, the Ford Mach-E, and the Volvo C40. They have the largest inventory of vehicles. Like we're talking months worth of inventory on lots sitting across the United States, like brand new vehicles. So the market statistics have been pretty interesting to watch, like seeing what's selling, what's not selling. And these are the 10 slowest or part of the 10 slowest selling vehicles in the US today. So
I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's the names because none of us recognize the names. And maybe if they had better names, they'd sell more.
we might be onto something with the names.
I don't know. I want to double down on Gallagher's take. Like great off-brand energy drink names. Like
The one that got me was
something.
C40 because like I think there's a C4
that's-
right.
There was
energy
C4.
drink.
Well,
Yeah,
C4
C4.
powder. Well, yeah. Well, they have the
Pre-workout or something.
pre-workout
Yeah,
powder.
yeah.
It's
But,
C4 plus WD-40.
I mean, you could picture the Hornet energy drink can. Like,
Yes.
You'll slide right through your workout.
And Mach-E. Mach-E feels very energy drink to me. I don't know.
I mean, Ford messed up calling their electric vehicle the Mustang. I think most people would probably agree with that. Like, it's just not a Mustang. And, like, that's, I don't know.
I understand the logic that I've heard. Like they wanted to usher in a recognizable brand, but I think you're right. It's like
The crossover.
So we
People
brought
who
you a
like the-
family SUV. This post.
people who like the brand Mustang don't like that they did that, and people that didn't know Mustang before don't care now.
Yeah.
So it's
Way to like denigrate like 50 something years of Mustang history with that.
that's a decision by committee right there versus like going to the Mustang team and being like, "You guys cool with this?" And they're like, crushing Four Locos, like, absolutely not, dude. We're here to do burnouts.
Yeah.
They tried to make up for it with the Mach-E. What is it? The Rally Edition, Mach-E Rally, the off-roading one. Pretty neat, but I don't know. I think you need a few more Four Locos to.
Just the
let
funny
that
thing is,
slide.
I think it's one of the better looking EVs. Like it
Does look good.
take the name off it and just put it up. I think we've had this conversation in our
Put a
EV
Ford badge
episode,
on
but like, yeah, I think
Yeah.
it looks cool. It's outside of what the Hyundai Ioniqs, right? I think it's the second best designs out there, but yeah, it's not a Mustang.
Yeah, the Ionics are nice. Did you know the new Ioniq N is hitting dealerships and it's like $70,000 for the high performance one? That one,
As I understand it, all cars are $70,000 now. I don't look at I'm pretty sure they all cost $100,000 to any new car.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our main topic. So, what do we need to open up a shop? So, maybe there's a lot of shops that are already open that are thinking, why do I need to listen to this? I'm already opened up. But there may be some things early on that you missed, or maybe there might be a few things that our people are doing now that weren't around or you never thought of when you originally opened up your shop. If you're going to open up a shop today, let's think about the tools, the location, the customers. Like, what are some of the basics you need to have covered when kind of making that decision to go out on your own?
and I'll jump in here. I know Mike and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, but the quick disclaimer of none of us have personally opened up any shops recently, right? But we get a chance to speak to so many great customers on a day-to-day basis. We have 6,500 plus customers using Shopmonkey. And so a lot of this conversation is going to come from a lot of these conversations, but also personal experience working in independent shops and whatnot. So just thought it'd be worth throwing a quick disclaimer out. We have not personally opened up any shops recently, but I think it's a great conversation.
A good disclaimer.
Speak for yourself, Lucas. You don't even know. I'm the biggest
you
shadow
don't know.
customer
Oh,
of
I'm
Shopmonkey.
Right? If you got a shop opening up,
He's got a whole
kinda
franchise
disappointed.
actually of garage shops throughout
Called
SoCal.
C40 Autos.
I only work on these 5 models. Mach-E's business is slow, boys, but I see a good future. I think to jump in, right? I think there's a lot of tactical stuff to talk about opening a shop. If I had if I could only give people one piece of advice, I'd be like, if you're going to open a shop, sit down and visualize what that looks like without you working on cars. Because one of the biggest things that we see as an early struggle, one of the biggest problems I solved for my team when I came into my shop was the shop owners working on cars. And if you're working on cars, you're not working on the shop. And it's like super played out, right, saying, but if you're working in the business, you're not working on the business. So when you start something up, you got to be ready to dive around, dive in, make things happen. You're going to be doing a little bit of everything. But you should really look at your plan and say, how do I operate this business without me fixing cars?
I might put a small caveat on that. I think that's generally the truth. There might be an exception that
I might drop you right out of this call, guys.
Come here, man. Let's go. But my only thinking there is like, what if you're the guy who really just loves the working on cars? Like, so, but I think the point is like, then find somebody to get to run the business for you, right? But figure out why.
Sure.
Answer the why of why you want to start a shop, right? Is it just, hey, this is where I want to make my income, and do I have a passion for building cool types of cars, and I don't want to manage the business end? Start to roadmap that stuff. I think is what you're saying. You're going to start with all that in place day one, but I like the idea of having a vision.
Dude, that's a great caveat. And that's why I love having these conversations with you guys and seeing different opinions, because you're absolutely right. If you there's so many different scenarios. And if you just love restoring old, X model of vehicle, and you want to build a business around that, but you also want to be the artist that is doing that, or whatever. Even if you're just doing, brakes and oil changes, you just love doing it. You're absolutely right. Then your focus could be to bring in somebody that takes on the business sides of it. But maybe I'll edit then, because that you definitely changed my view right away. Is you can't do both. So you have to either bring in. It doesn't necessarily mean partner or anything like that, but you have to hire someone who's going to, take those tasks on day to day of running the shop and talking to customers and ordering parts and doing all those things. And you need that person there to support you that way, or you need to be the person that's supporting your team to do all those things.
Yeah. Agreed.
I think that's definitely one of the things I run into in conversations the most is like someone's head's in the wrong spot. Like if you're a business owner, like your passion should be for running your business in all likelihood, rather than working on cars. And a lot of business owners that we talk to or mechanics that work for someone else, they want to go and try and do it better. And their heart is still in turning wrenches and not expanding their knowledge base on how to run their business. And I think that's probably just a different flavor of how you guys are saying it. But like that definitely stands out to me as, hopefully no hurt feelings here, but like the thing inhibiting a business from growing is usually the person who's running it. Like their head's not in that space, and they don't allow for their own personal time to like spend their energy and time investing into how to make their business grow. And I can speak to the thing that got me out of the industry, which is culture. And it's something that is not talked about really at all in the shop, and something that, here at Shopmonkey or in software, like culture is a big part of the decision as to why you might move from one company to another. But in the shop, things are what they are a lot of times. And culture is an afterthought. And it's definitely something that, as an employee in the shop, I felt the most restricted by my leadership, by ownership, not willing to expand on things, try out different concepts to make their business more successful, listen to their employees, and kind of figure out like which employees are contributing to my company culture and which ones are detracting from that culture. And we could probably read between the lines there of what I'm saying, but there are definitely employees that are making things worse for others. Or at least there's the potential there. And as a business owner, you have to be willing to keep an eye on that. As productive as they might be as an employee, they might be making others unproductive. And I would say the same goes for customers. You have to be willing, and I don't think a lot of shops are willing to do this based on feedback I get from conversations. They're not willing to fire their customers or, get rid of them. Like, you're discounting labor and parts to keep them happy. You're doing all of these things that actually take away from your business ultimately to try and appease customers that realistically you should consider maybe be willing to say no and tell them to go find someone else just to make your business more successful.
And we're having a lot of great points here that I just want to tie back to one thing that came up actually last year, I believe, when we had Phil on one of our Road to Success episodes. Perception is everything when someone's looking to come work for a business, or how you pitch yourself to even your employees, especially starting out, right? We're talking about anyone who's trying to get off the ground. Spending that moment to think through all of that, and having maybe even just like some very light documentation of like process and procedure and who we are as a business, like that can draw the right crowd to then build that culture, right? But it boils back down to what are those business practices you should be thinking about in getting up off the ground, and even just some simple documentation like, hey, this is who we are, who we plan to be as a shop and a business, and this is why I'm bringing you on, or would like to bring you on for X, Y, and Z position that we have in the shop. Sure. But yeah, that was like Phil was really big on that, making sure that they had a whole employee handbook, right? But he even mentioned that it took time. It didn't happen. Like that handbook didn't happen overnight. That handbook had iterations and versions, and it got, updated over a period of 6 months to a year. And now they're at a point where like, yeah, this is how we run our business. But it takes time, but you got to start somewhere.
I think that
so all these, I don't disagree with anything that you guys are saying, I think, but everything that's being mentioned is almost automotive agnostic. That's really just small business practices that we've all been really highlighting.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that self-reflection of understanding your passion, where to direct it, understand, being humble enough to identify your own faults or areas of weakness to be able to bring in other people to get help. The culture that your organization represents and how that goes about. If we were to shift that now, starting to be maybe a little still staying in kind of like the strategic tactical, because I think this is super helpful. But if we were to move it to more automotive specific, where would those turns, I guess, start for you guys?
First place, and we touched on it, but I would unpack a little more is what do you want to do, right? What segment of this industry are you looking to go to? You want to do general repair? Are you going to specialize? Are you going to do performance and custom? Like where's your skill set and where's your passion? Where do those two things overlap? And then, where are you going to take your shop, right? So I think there's like, when you're laying out the intention of like, what am I going to do? It's probably, I would guess, having thought about starting a shop myself, it's like, it's fairly obvious, right? When you're in that moment of like, what do I want to work on in this industry? You probably have a pretty good idea of where you're going to be at. But I think it's helpful to focus that down as part of kind of along some of these other exercises of thinking through and setting expectations and say, this is what I do. These are things I don't do, right? Especially at first, don't try and do everything. Don't try and do general repair and performance and custom. Like you're going to get diluted. You're going to get lost. You're not going to do any of those things really well. And I hear this occasionally. I'm the catch-all, jack of all trades type of person. Pick one thing and go deep on that, right? And then once you've got your business established around that, say, you want to do Honda, Toyota, Subaru, right? That was my background. Go deep on that, stay with that until you get really good, and then figure out, okay, where would it make sense to go from here? Now that we've got that sort of landing point established. So that's the first place. That's the first thing that I would do is kind of frame up that's automotive specific.
I think that bleeds really well into an idea of looking at what, not just what do I want to do, but what and why do I want to do the business, but what do I see the business being? And, you don't have to go crazy like 20 years, but like, I don't know, 2 years, 5 years and build towards that. Cause like, in my work background, I've encountered this, and I've also encountered it with people we talk to in the industry of like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that yet because I can't, I can't hire a salesperson yet because I don't have, we can't pay them. And I'm just going to use that as an example. It's like, well, you're never going to get the volume of work if you don't have someone who's just doing the job of bringing in work. So figure out a way to get there and do it. You have to. It's like, it's almost not a business if you can't take that step to bring in that person to focus on that, or to bring in another mechanic while you focus on the business. If you can't do one of those things, right, then you'll always be stuck in this, in the small wheels. So look at where you want to be in 2 years, 5 years, whatever is comfortable for you, and build towards that objective, as opposed to like, oh, well, here's where I am right now. Well, then if you just want to stay where you are, then that's obviously an option, but you'll never get to where you want to be if you don't kind of work towards it. But I also don't know, I don't want to spend the whole time being like, here's some conceptual ideas. Like, if you want to open a shop, you better have a building to do it. You better have a business license in most places, right? You're going to require that to protect yourself from a very bad day one day if you don't do these things. You better have a way to both, order parts and fluids and things like that, and also a way to get rid of them. So you need a company that's going to come in and empty your fluids and get rid of your trash and all that stuff. You probably need a bank account and a credit card to put on all these things so that you can keep the flow of parts coming in and the flow of services going out. And you're going to need to make sure that you're accounting for your local requirements around like water and employee safety, right? Those are all things that I had to do when I ran a shop, right? They came in once a year and were like, are the stickers on your coolant, dump tanks correct? That's all important things. And this is where the idea of working on the business instead of in the business sometimes is important, because those types of you don't have a business license, or in California, you have to, excuse me, you have to be registered with the Bureau of Automotive Repair, in order to run an auto shop. And if you don't have it, you could get into a real jam. You better have a good bank so that as you order stuff and buy parts, you have that kind of flow of either a credit card or an account or something, but also, a good credit card processor. So as you take payments and you take money from customers, you have protection to make sure you're getting that into your bank account, and you have chargeback protection and things like that. So, I I don't know. I want to keep going. You better have an email address and a website and a listing on
Talk
Google
about a
Maps.
solid summary. I think
Yeah.
we're all right. We're a wrap. We're good. No,
I want to give like real tools. You better have all these things. So if you
Yeah.
start telling people you got a shop and they're trying to find your phone number, whatever, that better exists. So you can bring that if you're really opening a business, right?
I was gonna double click in on business licensing because you said something that triggered a memory for me about liability, right? Because I think, we it's fairly common to see guys, especially when starting out, like, I'm just gonna take the work, shade tree, cash on the table type thing. Which I get it, right? Maybe that's how you do your first month or two, but the business license is really important. And I'll tell a story. My dad owned a shop, and early when I was a young kid, and I was probably 7 or 8, they had a technician drive a car through the waiting room and hit 2 customers. Complete accident. Got sued, right?
Yeah.
The business license is the shield that protects my childhood, the house that my dad had, the car we got to school in, the food that protects those assets from being available to the judgment in this lawsuit.
No Christmas this year. I ran over someone. So I'm sorry.
Right. So, and insurance, I guess.
It wasn't
license.
even him; it was an employee. Right?
Yeah. It was.
Or, a customer gets riled up and comes in, and drives into the waiting room. Like these are all things it's not about what you can do, what you're good at. It's about protecting from all the
things that you can't control. Well, and so hand in hand with that is insurance, right? Like, goodness gracious, insure everything you can insure it, reasonably, because you never know when that kind of, that's it. If you could predict it, you wouldn't need insurance. So get the insurance, get the business license. But yeah, that anecdote really sunk in for me. I was actually talking to somebody telling that story a couple weeks ago, and it's like, it's important, right? That stuff, like, my childhood would have been completely different if my dad hadn't set up the business the correct way and our personal assets had been gutted because of a mistake of an employee. Like, very different.
Sure.
So I guess leaning back into like Zach, like automotive focused aspects of the business, I do think that just the conversations I have with some shops, they get caught up in like general business practice, like concepts of like trying to discount parts and labor, and just kind of get caught up in I guess you'd call it a race to the bottom. And I think if shops, when you're opening a shop, just considering like the skill that you have, that you've employed, your technicians' value is their ability to produce labor, and your service writers' abilities are to sell that. And, giving them the tooling they need to do a better job of that, I think is really important and usually neglected, whether that's certainly pay. I think, making yourself uncomfortable as a business owner, I've definitely said that before, and paying your employees, I think will pay dividends in the long run for your business because they'll feel more in charge of their responsibilities and maybe even take on more than what they're expected. Service advisors, like when it comes to selling, a lot of times the temptation there is to appease a customer. And I, kind of hinted at, firing your customer if that's all they ever want, but also like your service advisor kind of selling the value of what their customer is getting. It's easy for a service advisor to kind of back down when a customer is approaching them and kind of give in to the customer's wants and needs. But sometimes it makes sense to just stand behind your value as a company. This is why I charge this much. This is the parts I install. Here's the warranty I offer. Here's all these things I offer you as a package that makes my shop the right shop for you as a customer. And I don't know if that's ever fully hashed out a lot of the times in the shops that I talk to. And I think it would make maybe the biggest impact. Just having that in place.
I talked to, this is not the goal of the podcast, but I want to choose my words carefully, right? I don't ever want to give away someone's juice, but I talked to one of our customers, and it was just a great conversation because he was telling me, he's like, I will pay you whatever you want. I'm going to hold you to a super high standard. So you tell me what you want to pay. I'm going to pay you whatever it is you want. I don't care. But I'm going to hold you to a super high standard. And his like A team is guys that he's let go like 20 times, but they've come back and they've, refactored how they do it, and they try again. And it was just a really cool conversation of like, but his team's crushed because of that's kind of his mindset is not like, oh, I can't afford to pay guys. He's like, I'll pay you whatever you want, but if you ask for a lot, you better bring a lot to the business.
That's crazy.
And then Mike, you all brought up something that I was just thinking about, like, yeah, Zach, from your point, getting into the automotive side, thinking about everything that we're talking about here. How do you make that all happen? And what's a very common potential mistake that we see a lot of shop owners do and come through in our conversations? They're like, I'd really love to stop doing this. What's a common one that we see often? It has to do with record keeping. Using your personal number to communicate with customers. How do you keep record of what the communications, to your point? How do you cover your back when you get into those situations? But like, then also, how do you make sure it doesn't get out of control? And into the tooling aspect of it, like, okay, what do you think about early on? Well, maybe I should think about a way to communicate with this customer base that I hope to grow and make pretty significant down the line. But yeah, don't use the personal number, right? You don't want that coming through. But also,
it's one of those things, right, that feels like an expense. Like, oh, well, that I have to get another number, or I have to get a 6 software platform that lets me communicate with my customers from a business number, right? Feels like another expense, but then it's like, yeah, but how much is your 2 a.m. sleep worth, right? When you start getting a call from some goober who wants a brake job at 2 a.m, it's if you worked in a shop long enough, everyone's gotten that call.
But yeah, but keeping record of that, right? Next time someone reaches out, like, hey, you didn't get back to me, or you promised this in X, Y, and Z. Sure. And it's like, well, you got to dig through your text and find that chat and that communication. It's like, well, and then how long are you storing it for? And so these are little things to think about, but software and the right tooling can make easier, right? And even out of the gate, make easier for a new business owner.
It goes back to that, like, what can I afford and what can I afford to lose? Because I've software and documentation has saved me from thousands and thousands of dollars of chargebacks, and you broke my car or you scratched my car conversations that are documentation in all those scenarios. I was like, here's where we texted you this, and here's where you said okay, and here's where the pictures of your car when it showed up, and here's the scratch you're talking about. It was already there. Or we talked to a shop not too long ago who was like, oh, customer called and said we damaged their vehicle. And this is, again, I'm not trying to build an antagonizing relationship, but there are realities to protecting the business. And this is the rare exception. I don't think customer and shop relationships should always be this way or are commonly this way. But like, oh, you get that call of, oh, I think you guys damaged my car when I pulled it in there. And just looking in Shopmonkey, you can see Carfax. Oh, you've been to 2 other locations since you've been here. Why would you assume the one 4 locations ago is the one that damaged your vehicle, right? It's just little things like that the cost of fixing that problem is 10x the cost of having good documentation from day one, right? So when we think about, I want to open this business, all right, well, when we get busy, I'll start bringing in documentation. It's like, you should have documentation from the first customer that walks through your door.
Yep. Yeah. When you get busier, documentation becomes harder, not easier.
Yeah. And we talked about it a little bit during the hot take, but cars are really expensive today. People are really sentimental about some of their used cars, right? Especially if they buy a really clean Subaru Forester that they plan on keeping. You're going to be super sentimental. Especially
if they buy a really clean Subaru Forester.
But they're going to be sentimental about those cars. You wouldn't want, accidents happen. So documenting and making sure that's all.
It'd be a real shame. This beautiful Forester just got nice salt dumped on it overnight.
Why is my car rusty this morning?
Lucas is at your place at night just throwing salt up on
spraying salt brine just
not the catalytic converter thefts we see. Lucas just pulls up, slides under, he's throwing salt and then drives away.
You're taking Salt Bay to another direction, huh? Oh boy. Anyways, yeah. People are sentimental. They like their cars. Cars are expensive. Documentation helps make sure you cover your back so you don't get into those situations.
And it's great for customers too, right? If you're taking a risk on a shop that just opened, if you show up and that shop is brand new, but they got good documentation, they're texting you, everything's dialed in, lined up, and the place is clean, then that's a shop worth taking a risk in, right? It feels a little better to take a shot.
I think that the other point around documentation is it's probably the best preventive, right? Like 99% of you walk around with the customer and take some pictures of their car before they, when they drop it off, you're not even going to get that call. Hey, I think you scratched my car. Like it's just going to erase that stressful conversation. As a guy who got, several of us had those calls multiple times, you're like, oh, what I wouldn't pay not to even have that conversation, just to not get that phone call. Yes, I will pay money not to get that phone call.
And to tie it back, right? I don't want to build a antagonistic relationship. So it's good for the customer too, because then I can say, oh, well, we have documentation, so we can help you dial in. Did you know there's a scratch on your bumper? You might not even have seen it, man. It happened at the grocery store. You haven't looked at that area in a couple of weeks. And then of course, when the car comes out of the shop, you just got your car back, you put some money into it, you're going to walk around and look at everything. So it's our job too, to build that good relationship of like, hey, did you see that, there's a dent here or there's a scratch here? Are you aware of it? I know a good painless dent repair guy if you want us to have him come fix this while we're doing your oil change. I don't want to always say that this is a negative relationship. There's a positive part to it too, both for the customer and the shop, to be like, that's my job, is to have the eye that sees these things on a car and I can tell you about them.
Yeah.
It's also an expectation too. Like if you have a younger customer, it's just at this point an expectation they have when doing business with someone, like electronic payment and like digital estimates and inspections. Like all of those things are something that they're used to everywhere else they go. So when they don't get it in the shop, then it makes them think less of the shop. I mean, I think that much would be true. So, I mean, waiting to use software, I think, will prevent you from building the book of business that you otherwise would, and having a broader range of folks to come into your shop.
And I know we've talked about this in other episodes, but there's that to kind of put on both points, is that it contributes to the relationship, but that relationship's built on that foundation of trust. And the two ways to build that is, one, in the customer experience, the back and forth, how you talk, what you say, do you follow up on what you say? Does everything kind of make sense? And then the other piece of it is that digital component, right? Where you just said, like, they walk around and they're taking pictures and they can see, oh my gosh, these guys are really taking care of my vehicle. They have all this documentation. I can feel good about that they're going to take care of my car. So it's the customer experience, and then you doing the job well. Put that together, then you have the trust, you have that relationship to move forward.
So we talked a little bit about, right, some conceptual things that you should think about, some experiential things you should think about, some nuts and bolts things, right? You need the building, you need hopefully one lift. It's going to save you a little effort. You should have the business license, right, to protect yourself from anything that could, things go wrong. It happens. But we've talked a little bit about payments a few times, right? So it's pretty important that you have a payment platform and a payment processor that is built really for the shop environment and for that job, which entails things like not only collecting payment, but protecting yourself from chargebacks. And because, right, it may be like, hey man, I got a PayPal account, I can just have people do that. But again, it's like in the 2-year path. And if you want a shop that you open a shop and you start a business, but it stays open and you maintain that business, right? The more work you do, the better, right? You're bringing in more work, you're bringing in more income. Well, if you have this external payment platform, now you're managing two different things, like the shop and then this other payment platform, right? That can start to slow you down if that platform isn't really built and designed to help support you as a business owner, right? Not all payment platforms are the same. So that's something you should spend some time looking into. Because it can be a drag mentally and time wise, but also, a PayPal account is not the same as a payment gateway that allows you and your shop management to be flowing correctly, both from the customer side through collecting payments to the depositing those payments and protecting yourself from chargeback situations, and then on into accounting, whether you're just getting started, you open a QuickBooks Online account and you're just tracking your numbers just to protect yourself from taxes and stuff, or you're just handing off all that information to an accountant that does it for you, right? Those are all things you want to think about from day one, as opposed to like, oh, I got a safe full of $5,000 now. What do I do with this? Again, if you want to open but stay open, these are things that long term will protect you, keep you open, but also, as you grow, they scale with you, as opposed to becoming another wall you have to jump over. So you should really look at, Mike, I think you kind of mentioned it, don't race to the bottom. Figure out what you need to make. So when you order parts, you're going to have an account with some parts vendor, and you're going to get a wholesale price. And you need it. Most places you needed that business license to get that wholesale account anyway. And then figure out what your markup needs to be. Figure out what your markup on your labor needs to be and your labor rate, so that you can stay open for 2 years. Don't just run it out to keep one customer happy. If you can't make what you need to make to stay open, then you're just setting yourself up for a worse fall down the line.
And I think the only other thing that's hopping into my mind just as a fast follow to this, because I know we got to start wrapping this up, but is also having a plan for how you're going to get and acquire customers, right? Like it's not really enough to just say I hung a sign out on Main Street anymore, right? Maybe if you're in a really small town, but you need to have you.
I was going to say, I've been to some Texas towns the last couple of weeks. So
there's some places for sure. No, but you should have at least a pretty light understanding of how to get yourself found digitally, right? We've already talked about this in several different avenues. Digital is the way that especially, most customers are finding now. And so there's things you can do for free, right? Go grab your Google My Business page, put up a listing, get your information up there. Then there's things you can do that are beyond free: Google AdWords, Facebook promotions, right? Things like that. I'm not an expert on it. I'm sure there's tons and tons and tons of content on YouTube or places like that you could learn about it. But before you have some understanding of how you're going to reach and find new customers to bring in, before you invest in the tools and the licensing and the insurance and the building and the lease, make sure you've got a plan to get people to show up and actually spend money with you.
And Gallagher, you just brought up something really important, is that some of these tools, is we mentioned earlier, former mechanic or worked for somebody coming out wanting to do this themselves. You have a lot of these tools ready to go, and I think that's a lot of the mindset that we hear sometimes is, I have it, I can jump into it, I can start this business and keep going. The tools we're talking about, or a tool or a checklist of tools to think about, are these digital tools, are these other tools, these business tools that can bring your business to a whole different level, even if you're starting out. And Gallagher, what you mentioned from Google My Business, I just want to double down on that for a second. But the Google My Business profile is a free process on Google's Google My Business website, and so that just gets you that digital footprint. And I think if I'm not wrong, it takes like 15 to 25 minutes to fill out, and usually gets you on the map on Google, almost within that 24 to 48 time frame.
For folks that are watching that may have never heard that term, Google My Business is just the account that you open that's free that puts your business on Google Maps. So you put in your name, you put in your address, you put in your hours. You just sign up with an email and password.
Super easy.
It's free. So Google My Business is just the page that you utilize to write in your info that then shows up on Google Maps.
And we all use it because when we look for services, even non-automotive services, and you Google something, that's exactly what you're finding are those profiles. So as a business owner, get your name on there. That doesn't cost anything. So
I think we've done a lot, right? We've covered couple conceptual ideas, like here's a mindset thing, here's a plan, think about it. Some experiential ideas, like here's how you want to interact with people and protect yourself. We've covered some nuts and bolts: a space, a license, a bank account, some tools, some people, some employees, right? Those things. And then also, and finally, make sure that those things align to set you up to be open for years, not just for...
Notably, we didn't really talk about software a ton.
I mean, if only one thing did.
We skirted around it, but
that'd be great.
Sorry, I just had an itch on my head.
Got to work in the plug somewhere.
Thanks. Sorry, guys.
Just to not be elusive, Shopmonkey helps you with pretty much all these things. So give us a shout. We'd be happy to help you understand most of these tools.
Oh, man, I was going to leave it mysterious.
Achieve most of these
leave
tasks.
It floating out there.
Yes,
just figure it out. No.
Yeah, that's great. Well, any final thoughts, Mikey? You've been a little bit quiet at the end here. Anything else you want to add?
Mike is shopping for Subaru parts, dude.
He's thinking about me going on the
anti-salt undercoating. He's shopping for those undercoating sprays.
You're not going to give me Lucas. Yes, sir.
Ring doorbell cam.
just tack it on the side of the car. Closing thoughts. be passionate about running your business. Familiarize yourself with the numbers that are good and the numbers that are bad, and keep an eye on that. Focus on customer experience. That should be part of your passion as a business owner. Take care of your employees, and give your technicians air conditioning. That's a selfish ask. Never had it.
Please.
I'd love to have it.
Please.
That's my closing thoughts.
Yeah, my final one is Moretti. You brought it up a little bit, and we've done this in some podcasts. But yeah, anyone listening to this, reach out to us if we missed anything, or if there's something that you're like, hey, that was, maybe that was impactful. We're just curious. We love hearing from our shops, or even shops that aren't our shops, and just, hey, this was a cool conversation. And we've seen some cool YouTube comments before on a few of the podcasts we posted. But yeah, we have a few emails out there. Zach, I'm going to throw ours out real quick. The just the training one, training at shopmonkey.io. Hopefully we have a full. Maybe we should look into a podcast email. That'd be cool, just in case we get questions. But yeah, for now,
Just email us at B.
But yeah, that'd be really cool to hear if this was beneficial, or if we missed anything. I think it'd be cool to just cover it in a future episode if someone had reached out.
Yeah, and if you're watching this on YouTube, man, just drop it in the comments. Like, start the conversation. Help each other out. I think that's one of the coolest things about the automotive industry, is really making sure people try to prop each other up. Like, certain areas are cutthroat and certain parts of that industry, sure, but for the most part, people try to help each other, and so. And it ends up paying back in dividends. So please help each other out. Put down things that have really worked for you. Maybe if you have questions about something that we said that maybe is unclear, or you want to get into the nitty gritty, just reach out, man. Ask for help. If anything, as I'm getting older and wiser, that's been like the biggest life lesson I've been learning.
I love asking for help, man.
And Moretti loves talking, so he'll talk your ear off.
For sure, dude. I'll call you myself. I'll talk to you all about shop over. I also want to close with my closing thought, which is like, also, you're going to take some risks, right? Not all this will line up perfectly. Opening a business is a risky endeavor. And some of it's going to be perfect, and some of it's going to not work at all, and you'll have to figure it out. And again, not to just promote us, but it's good to have people behind you that, are invested in your success and want to see you be successful. And I was lucky to run a shop, and I had folks like the folks at Shopmonkey that helped me do that every day. Often I talk to them a lot, and then I talk to other shop owners, and the shop owners in your neighborhood don't have to be your competition. There's plenty of cars, man. So make some good friendships.
Yeah, and even though we kind of joked around about it, but the real reality is we all work for Shopmonkey, and this podcast is brought to you by Shopmonkey. We have a sweet shop management system that we think
is pretty sweet.
It is pretty sweet. That can absolutely help your shop. We truly believe that. That's why we're here. That's why we like talking about it. We believe in what we do, and we believe in all y'all in upholding this industry and serving customers. If you're interested in learning more, check us out at shopmonkey.com. That's it for today. Thanks for watching and listening to the Tune Up Podcast. See y'all next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great weekend.